And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining our platform today, where we are draining the Louisiana swamp by elevating constitutional conservative incumbents and candidates, moving Louisiana toward accountability to the citizens. My name is Chris.
And I'm Danielle, and this is the State of Freedom. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad that you're joining us. We love that you choose to spend a piece of your day with us. We're so honored by that. Today, we will be continuing the endorsement series with a patriot, a true conservative, and a man who has stood up to fight for the children. Randy Bush is running for state senate in District 37, and we'll get to meet him in a minute. But first, let's take a look at the scripture of the day. It is Psalm 102, verses 12 to 15. And it says, "But then I remember that you, O Lord, still sit enthroned as king over all. The fame of your name will be revealed to every generation. I know that you are about to arise and show your tender love to Zion. Now is the time, Lord, for your compassion and mercy to be poured out. The appointed time has come for your prophetic promises to be fulfilled." And it's just such a great reminder that the Lord is still our reigning king. The title of this psalm is From Tears to Praise, and I want to focus on the praise part because it feels like this is where we are as a nation. I really do feel that the Lord is about to rise and show us his tender love, his compassion, and his mercy. He is coming to fulfill his promises to us as individuals and to our nation. I just really believe that we're walking into a time of answered prayer, of promises fulfilled, and a great restoration because of the goodness of God. And I think that this election season is going to be a part of that.
Part of the ways, Danielle, that the Lord can and will show his tenderness and favor toward us is by delivering to us and helping us to elect good constitutional conservatives who understand that their accountability and their fidelity is to the people, not to big special interest groups, not to big, powerful entities that would pressure and coerce them into doing things that are not in the interest of the citizens. And that is why we have chosen to endorse Randy Bush for state senator in District 37, because he is just one of those constitutional patriots. And it's such a pleasure to have you on this morning, Randy. How are you?
Good morning. How you doing, Chris? Danielle, how you doing?
Great. It's great to be with you, Randy. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, I got two things. Danielle, how many episodes does this make that you guys have done so far?
61.
And it took you that long to get me on. What's up with that now?
I only met you this weekend, Randy. You have to blame Chris because I just met you.
Hey, Danielle,
Randy.
let me tell you this quick story about meeting people. I was carrying this article in my phone about somebody in our area that was a rhino, and it was just an inspirational article to me that, man, I don't want to be like this guy. I can beat him, and so my friend Susie said, "You got to meet Chris Alexander." So Chris walks in the room, and Chris asked me some questions about why you running for Senate, why you so fired up about this. I said, "Well, here's an article, sir, right here that gets me excited." And I showed him the article. Chris goes, "Randy, I wrote that article." True story. True story.
Well, it looks like the endorsement works both ways.
It was a hayride article. He said, "Randy, I wrote that." I said, "Well, bro."
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome.
Article about your opponent that we'll be talking about a little bit later in the show. But I think I stood up that very night after meeting you at that forum and spoke very highly of you and endorsed you right then and there. I could tell I'm a pretty good judge of character. And so far, we've been right. But let me ask you this, Randy. Tell our listeners a little bit about your background, your professional background, personal background, and importantly, what made you decide to feel compelled to run for state senate?
Well, after high school, I waited 5 years before I took the ACT test. And when I decided to go to college at Southeastern Louisiana University and got my BA, then I kept going and got my master's degree. And then I kept going and got my plus 30, all in administration, supervision, education. So I spent a lifetime in education. In the last 4 years, I was a Tangipahoa Parish School Board member, but I didn't seek re-election last fall because I knew the Senate seat was coming up this year. And so it's 2019, my first year as an elected school board member, and I learned really quick that there's too many people telling us what to do. and
So
not
true.
and not listening to on local level people in your local school system had ideas and knew the right thing to do. Man, we were being told what to do by the governor, by the Bessie, by the Department of Education, by senators, by representatives. So I started contacting my senators and found out we had 4 in Tangipahoa Parish, and none of them lived in Tangipahoa Parish.
What?
And come to find out, we've never had a state senator that lived in Tangipahoa Parish that represented us in Baton Rouge. And I knew the census was coming in 2020, and I knew Senator Bodie Whitehead was term limited out. And this was the best time we ever would have had in the near future to have a senator. And so I started talking to our senators, and I realized in 2019 that the census came out good in our favor and the numbers were good. And I started attending these redistricting road shows throughout the state. So I knew it was coming. So here's the reason. And I know you guys understand this, that David in the Bible slayed a giant, and that's a great story. But he said something before the battle happened, and he wasn't at the battle to fight the giant. His daddy sent him there to serve lunch to his brothers.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was in the stands making a comment to us. Well, if you kill the giant, what do you get? And his brother said something, kind of smart aleck to him, but they weren't getting along. So David looked at him and said, what did I do now? And then he goes, but isn't there a cause? I mean, isn't there a cause that someone should go across that field and fight this guy? I mean, isn't there a cause in our family, our country, our nation, our children, our community? Isn't there a cause? I mean, you could die, you could get hurt, but the causes are great. There are reasons, my friends, trust me, and you know it. There's a lot of causes why somebody would want to be a state senator to bring godly, Christian, conservative, Republican values to Baton Rouge, especially after what we saw this spring. And then that's the reasons. I mean, there's so many people. I mean, we're arguing, can boys dress out in girls' dressing rooms?
Right.
Who would have thought that? I mean, why is that even a discussion? And then one more related story, biblical story about, Lot lived in Sodom and Gomorrah. We know what happened. But Lot was described as a righteous man, but his soul was tormented. And for what I see in today's world, there are causes to fight for. And inside my soul, I'm just tormented about every day when I look up and I read some of these issues. And it's just not national issues, it's local issues in our state, in our individual parishes, and in our communities.
And Randy, I'll say this, not only are they local and state issues, it appears as though it's only the local and state governments at this point that have a real fighting chance of reining the federal government in and of asserting our individual and state sovereignty in the face of that federal tyranny.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm going to get back to, and on the back of my card that I pass out, it says, I do not speak politician, but I speak the language of the people.
I like it.
I love that.
And, and that's where I'm at with people and their wishes and their thoughts. And no one should be able to, the government's role is just kind of like help those wishes and promote the people, not the people promote the government. And, of course, we're all on the same page or we would be having this discussion. But you need senators that are brave enough to look at a governor or speaker of the House or the Senate president and say, whatever, you're going to punish me, threaten me. I don't care. I'll go on Sean Hannity, Fox News, and tell them you've been mean to me and you said you were going to punish me. Like we heard last night at the meet, send your little messenger from upstairs and threaten to take money away from Southeastern Louisiana University and see how fast I'll make a video about, so.
Exactly. The threat works both ways,
great?
Right? I mean, the public understanding what's going on can work both ways.
Exactly. So that's the reason. There's causes. My soul's tormented, and we got to get back to letting the people.
It sounds to me like this is not a decision that you made based on what you're saying in order to give yourself more power. It's not a decision that you made out of some kind of false sense of ambition. It sounds to me like you made this decision based upon all the things that you're seeing in our state that trouble you.
Yeah, Chris, remember this, Danielle and Chris. This is it right here. Endorse me because I stand for this. I'm a good speaker. I'm a nice guy. I'm educated. All those are good things. But endorse me for the real reason, and that is the message. And the Senate just allows me to stand on a platform. It's not about Randy Bush. It's not about me being this. It's not about Baton Rouge. It's about the message that I share in my heart that I can get to share with people. That's important, because you can listen. There's other people evil out there that has great speaking ability and great platforms, but their message is wrong. So we've sent Republicans to Baton Rouge, supposedly Republicans, conservatives, but they get up there and they change their message, and this has helped to be the mess that we're in. But my message will never change, no matter whether you like me. You could call me a homophobe, a Islamphobe, a transphobe. You can say I have book phobia now because I don't think smut and pornography ought to be in our libraries. But if you call me a rhino or fraud, that hurt my feelings.
Now,
one of the issues, Randy, alluding to what you just said, one of the biggest frustrations that our listeners have, that LCAG members have, and I know that citizens across the state have, is this. It boils down to this. They run on one thing. They run on constitutional conservatism. They tell all their potential voters exactly what they want to hear. And then they get in there, and within 6 months or 8 months or a year or even less, they are bought and paid for by big special interests, and they have forgotten who elected them.
Yes.
What can you tell our listeners to reassure them that that is not going to be Randy Bush's fate once you get elected?
When I talk to people, I tell them this: I am not afraid to lose. So I'm not scared to lose. If I lose, I lose. But I'm going to tell you what, it's not going to be because I'm not standing up for the right message and the right principles. This is what you get with me. This is what I stand for. If you want to vote for me, fine. If you want to donate money to me, fine. That's okay. I'll lose. But I'm going to stand up for those conservative Republican principles no matter what. So it's not going to be a secret. So I'm not going to sugarcoat abortion or gun control or borders or tax code or whatever it might be. I'm not going to sugarcoat crime in our state. I'm going to tell you like I feel. And if you don't like it, then don't vote for me. But when I win, you know what you're going to get. And no one is going to make me ever change my mind and be nervous or scared because I get a message from someone's office saying, if you don't vote for this, we're going to do this and this and this. And man, have they met me? They just don't.
Apparently not.
Yeah, because none of that bothers me. Being a senator is not a big deal. And I know it's a big deal. I understand there's only 39 and we never had one in Tangipahoa Parish, but that doesn't really, I don't go ooh and ah over the state capitol. What hurts my heart is what I'm seeing happen. And I'm just going to be somebody that everybody can't run for Senate. Everybody can't, be in a position in life where, I've retired officially from education. So I have Blue Cross Blue Shield insurance for life. And, I'm just at a good point. My kids are grown. I'm just at a good point to go fight for us. And it's only a $17,000, $18,000 a year job to start with.
Yeah. You're not in it for the money.
Yeah, but I'm able to go there and fight and look at people and say, well, you know what? This is what I'm going here for. And there's enough senators, I think, running, and we saw that last night in the endorsement from the Louisiana Freedom Caucus, that there's about 7 or 8. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring courage to the other 7 or 8 that would probably like to stand up but are nervous, and teach them how to be brave and have courage, and we'll stand together as a team. And I think we could turn that part of the Capitol around completely.
I love it.
Great point. We have to have good, strong senators. We have too many there who are not.
Well, that has been the big breakdown point for so many important votes, has been the weakness of the Senate.
Yeah, we saw that this spring especially.
Yeah.
No question. Randy, what about this question that is on the minds of many, many people across the state? There is rumors out there of another strain of either the Omicron virus, COVID, that is rearing its ugly head, apparently, and there has been talk of lockdowns, mask mandates, more vaccine coercion, and health protocols mandated by the government. I want to hear very clearly from you, what is your position on that? How would you respond to that if that were to come down, both on a personal level and as a legislator?
Well, I think when all this happened, I agree with everyone. It was new, no one knew what was going on or whatever, and that wasn't my big problem. My big problem is to allow one person, our governor, enough authority to make a decision, whether it's mask mandates or vaccine mandates or shutting our state down. And I've said this before, and I tell people, and you've heard it already. If my mom, she's 87, if she's alive, if she was a governor, I wouldn't give her that authority either. So one person should not have the right to do that. Now, if 105 representatives and 39 senators got together and decided this, I know my votes on mask mandates and vaccine mandates and shutting down the government. The answer is a big no. We're old enough and wise enough and smart enough as parents and people to make our own decisions. If you want to get a shot, go for it. You want to wear a mask, do it. You don't want to travel in stores, do it. But don't leave Walmart, Home Depot, and Lowe's open and close our churches and think that that's somehow another different.
Exactly. The one person that should be making the decisions is the individual, not the government.
Exactly. And that's what I would do. I would allow individual choices. That's what, and listen, if you're a man, you want to be a woman, that's your choice between you and God. When you get judged, I'm not going to be in that room, I promise. But
Yeah.
I shouldn't be required to treat you as a woman. I'm going to choose to treat you as a man because you're still a man. And if you don't like me, that's okay. But don't make me have to treat you, or don't make me get something that's going to make me do something that I don't want to do. Let me make my own decision.
Yeah. Freedom. It's real. It's about freedom, right? And I think you're so right, Randy. We have been put in a position as a society where the minority voice and the minority viewpoint, the minority values causes the masses of people to cower. And it just causes people to shut up and to shrink back because of name calling. And I think it's so important that you and remarkable that you are not going to be cowed by name calling, because you will be called names. We're all being called names.
You already are. You're right. And I love people, Danielle. It's not that I dislike anyone.
Yeah. But your voice is just as important as anybody else's, right? I mean, I think that's the reality, is that the minority's voice has been magnified and amplified to such a level that the truth is almost getting blurry for people to see, because the truth has been shut out to such a point that people feel like, oh, I better shut up because no one agrees with me. 98% of people probably agree with you,
right,
if you're on the side of right and truth.
And they don't have, unfortunately, they don't have the courage, many people, to stand up and express what they're really feeling. But what you touched on a minute ago, Randy, about getting in there, and your courage and the courage of some other senators in the chamber will embolden other people to do the right thing. It's amazing how infectious courage can be, isn't it?
Oh, amen.
It is. And we're not the only group that has taken note of your courage either. Randy, you'd mentioned off air that there have been several groups to endorse you so far. Do you want to maybe make mention of some of them?
Yes, the only ones I can mention now that have officially come out, and there's more coming, but they've asked me not to say it. The St. Tammany Parish Republican Party endorsed me a couple weekends ago. And of course, the Louisiana Freedom Caucus endorsed me already also. And they only endorsed 7 senators, the Louisiana Freedom Caucus, and I was one of them. So that's a big honor.
It is.
And I have some final interviews coming up in the next week with 4 or 5 other folks. And there are other Republican organizations and just conservative groups in business and transportation and contractors. And I hope next week that they'll come out also. And They sit and they ask you these questions, and you speak from your heart, and you don't make it up, and I don't bring notes. Who was the Supreme Court justice? It was a lady. I forgot her name, but
Sotomayor?
yes. And they asked her what was written on the notepad that she had, because she was just ratting off these answers, and she was a genius. And she held it up, and it just said, like Supreme Court.
Oh, Amy Coney Barrett. That was Amy Coney Barrett, not Sotomayor.
Yeah. And I thought that was such amazing, because she just was speaking from her heart.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I've done. And so it's been amazing. And so I'm going to have a lot of endorsements and a lot of support. And listen, my friends, we're going to change this Baton Rouge thing around. You hear me? Because there's some senators on that list last night, and we're going to make sure we don't have to go through this anymore. And no Speaker of the House, no governor, no Senate president is going to just be able to just run over you because you're scared or nervous. Let me talk about name calling, because as a politician, which I'm not, social media, they're going to call you names and they're going to hate you, and people are going to look at you and you'll get a bad reputation. Well, we're supposed to have a bad reputation. There are people that are supposed to not like me. They're supposed to talk about me. They're supposed to disagree.
It's true. It's scriptural, right?
It's scriptural. It's a fact.
It is. It is scriptural. And Churchill said, Randy, Churchill said that if you look back on your life and you don't have any enemies that you've made, then there's a chance that you've done very little meaningful things in your life. And I believe that. But the reason why I wanted to ask you about the lockdown issue, and Danielle and I are very concerned about that, is because back in 2020, when all the lockdowns were going down in Louisiana in early 2020, and then in late 2020, Representative Seabaugh is circulating a petition in the legislature to reopen this state because of the tremendous harm that lockdown was causing families, businesses, people. It was a terrible hardship for the citizens of Louisiana. And your opponent, Representative Bill Wheat, nice enough person, but did absolutely nothing to assist in the reopening of this state, was quiet as a church mouse. And that's one of the things that originally sent up a red flag and caused us to begin to sort of look at his votes and look at his actions in the legislature. And we just found that deeply disappointing, that he was so inactive in trying to reopen this state at a time when people were suffering so much.
Yes, I'm very familiar with Alan and what he tried to do back in the day. And I didn't live back in that time as far as knowing all the details, but I do know the details today. And I promise everyone, I will never support a mask mandate, a vaccine mandate, a school closure, business closure in our state ever. I mean, you make your own decision. You do what's best for your family.
Amen.
Yes.
Amen.
So that question.
Well, Randy, let's ask you this. How can people get in touch with you? How can they follow you? How can they learn more about you?
Well, like I said, I'm a people person. So I've been working since February of 2022 to be the next state senator in District 37. So there's 3 different parishes involved. So every day I'm somewhere meeting with somebody, but you can look me up on Facebook. My personal Facebook page is just Randy Bush Facebook, and it's public, and I got like 5,000 friends, and I keep deleting people that are inactive so I can get more. And what's a good thing, I think in the last few months I've deleted 400 or 500 people, and I'm back up to 5,000 again. So just look me up there, you'll see my whole life. Also, you can email me at randybush13@yahoo.com. My cell number is listed on my Facebook page there, information. And so I'm easy to get a hold of, and I'm easy to read, and I share everything on my page where I'm at, pictures. Please contact me. And I have people call me almost every day now asking me questions.
How is your race looking out there, the response you're getting? It sounds to me like you're getting a lot of momentum out there with people.
Yeah, Chris, I came out first. I put my signs out first. It was a strategic move, because in Tangipahoa Parish we have 5 really strong candidates running for sheriff. Our sheriff decided not to seek re-election. So I knew with the sheriff's race and the Senate race and the representative race and the council race and the governor's race, these signs would just be everywhere, and they are now. So I put mine out first. They're really visible. They're really easily seen. Uh, I'm more of a hands-on person than I am a direct mail piece kind of guy. So I'm at lots of functions and speaking at lots of places.
Well, I know you're working hard. I know you're hustling out there, and I know you well enough to know that you don't sit still.
No, and I had people tell me this all the time. I had a guy tell me yesterday, he said, Randy, when you first called me and told me you was running for Senate, I was going to tell you to save your money because you were just wasting your time. But today, I think you're going to win because the perception is you have worked so hard and outworking all your opponents, and you're such a personal guy. Well, I have a lot of energy. But you know what? I define it like this. I have a sense of urgency that we have got to make a move. I mean, look at the tax code in Louisiana. How about your insurance rates? How about the crime rates in these 3 or 4 cities in Louisiana? How about the budget has doubled in the last 4 or 5 years, and it's $50 billion now? And you're worried about how you're going to replace the money if you do away with the personal income tax. Well, I got an idea. Why don't we cut the budget down? How about cut spending?
Yeah.
Yes.
How about doing
Novel
that?
idea.
I mean, $50 billion from $25 billion? Wow. And then we still didn't give our teachers or support staff or our law enforcement officers any kind of permanent pay raise or significant pay raise this year when we had $2.3 billion surplus. And what we went through, and I'm going to say it, was glorified vote buying. Because these legislators pass this budget without reading it so they can give money back home to their people because it's election year.
Yeah.
And not for critical infrastructure, not for vital rebuilding, but for things like band uniforms and football stadiums and all the rest of it that ingratiates them to certain special interest groups, which we find really, really reprehensible.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I know representatives who got money from other towns that they didn't even represent because when redistricting happened, that town was drawn in their district now. Whoever heard
Unbelievable.
of you giving money to a town that you don't represent now, but next year you could be because it's different redistricting. And that's just
Yeah, that's the kind of trash we need to take out.
Yeah, that's just amazing to me. So again, call me names, do what you want to do. I'm not going to really care about that. I'm going to do the right thing, and I'm so glad those 19 representatives did the right thing, and they were rewarded this weekend at the Republican State Convention. And Chris, where me and you were both at again, and I'm proud of those 19 people.
Yeah.
We are too. I'm very proud that you have the ability to stand on your own 2 feet because there's going to be a lot of times down there when, again, you're going to be asked to do things that you know are not in the best interest of your citizens. And we've received a commitment from you that you're not going to be that way. And by the way, your response to the LeCag survey was very indicative of where you stand on issues, very responsive. And we're very pleased to have gotten that back. Thank you, Randy Bush, for coming on for a little while today and talking with us. Tell us again the parishes again, just that you are in, that you'll be running in, and that people can vote in.
It's 3,000 people in Livingston Parish, total people, 2,000 registered voters, right around the city limits of Albany area. Now, I spent 10 years as an educator inside those city limits, 2 years at the junior high and 8 years at the high school. And my wife's an Albany High School graduate, so we still have family live in town. And let's jump to St. Tammany. It's 15,000 total people, 10,000 registered voters. Mainly when you head into St. Tammany from Tangipahoa, south of Highway 22, goes through the town of Madisonville, jumps across just the Funky River, heads into Mandeville to 190. And the biggest majority of the district is in Tangipahoa. And out of 133,000 residents that we have in Tangipahoa Parish, 95,000 are in this district. All of Hammond, all of Ponchatoula, Robert Beatty. By the way, let me mention these communities, Chris and Danielle, because it's important to me. It's Mandeville, Madisonville, Robert, Beatico, Ponchatoula, Manchac, Wadesboro, Pumpkin Center, Albany, Hammond, Baptist, Talbany, Tickfall, Independence, Amite, and Roseland. 16 communities. There's 27,000 registered Republicans, 20,000 registered Democrats, 20,000 registered independents. It's many different races, many different denominations and religions. So it's people. It's like almost a perfect picture of what God made this district. Different people getting along, having the same thoughts, having the same mindset on most issues. Now, listen, I'm not going to agree with some other political parties on issues. There's no ands or buts about it. But I've been contacted by the Democrat Party in both parishes, St. Tammany and Tangipahoa, and I'm thinking an endorsement is going to come quick. Isn't that amazing to be endorsed by your party and also have a favorable rating by the other party, because it's just about people. And we all want the right thing. We want a better schools, better roads, less crime, more opportunity, a different tax code.
Absolutely. Family values.
Family values. And I mean, and it's that they look at Washington, D.C. and see all that fighting and carrying on up there. We don't have to live like that here. We can let people regulate themselves and make good choices. And so in Tangipahoa Parish, it's 95,000. It's mainly the west of Interstate 55, if you can picture that in your mind. When it gets to the Tall Benny, Tickfall area, it's west. I do a lot of traveling, a lot of visiting, a lot of seeing people. And I've been getting some really, really good response from lots of folks.
Sounds to me like you're getting good responses from both Republicans and Democrats.
Yes.
And independents. We were talking, Randy, with a candidate on another show, and he made the interesting point. He said, it's not even so much about Republican versus Democrat versus independent. It's really come to a point where it's really the citizens against an established elite bureaucratic power structure that is opposed to all of us and our basic core values that we all agree on.
Oh, yeah. And I haven't talked to a parent yet that didn't say, I don't want my 10-year-old girl in school looking at a truck and somebody walking by her and say, oh, girl, you looking at a truck, you must won't be a boy. Here's a book on how to turn into a boy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No one wants that to happen. But at this moment, right now as we speak, every school employee in our Louisiana would have to address a student the pronoun that they choose, that their parents choose. Because we had a bill this spring that would say you can address the pronouns, the gender that's listed on the birth certificate, which is only going to say male and female. God decided that a long time ago. But now that didn't even pass because the Senate couldn't get their act together and override our governor.
Randy, Rhino Republicans caused the defeat of very, very important legislation in the veto override session. And it was very, very sad to see that occur. And that is the reason why it's so important that you're running, so that we can replace many of those rhinos with good constitutional conservatives. Well, you are a good man. We are very thankful that you are running. We support you wholeheartedly in your race.
Let me say this, Chris, before we leave. On my Facebook page, you can see my my QR code. I think that's what you call it for Venmo. I'm in the big fundraising mode right now. I have 3 events coming up this September. One in Madisonville on September the 9th, one in Independence on September 26th, and one in Albany on September 28th. So feel free to get in touch with me and donate, because you got to have money to do this. Unfortunately, that's the
absolutely
nasty word. But I want to end with this, guys. It's hunting season, and I got my license, and I'm going to get me some rhinos. I promise you.
Amen, brother. I like
Love
that.
it.
And you just better. You're going to aim well, and you're going to do your part to take out a rhino. God bless you, Randy Bush. Thank you for being with us today. Godspeed, and we will be in touch.
Amen. Good to talk to both of y'all. Have a great day.
Thanks. Talk to you soon, Randy. Chris, he is just such a joy. I mean, I love, he's got so much energy. He's got so much passion. And I mean, it doesn't even matter if he has an opponent. I think what he's bringing to the table is so fantastic.
You know what I was so taken by? You're so right, Danielle. And you know what I was so taken by listening to him? The fact that he's so natural. It's like I feel like I could be sitting across my living room table or a fishing camp, and he's just going to be telling the truth from his heart as he sees it. I find that so refreshing.
It is. It's absolutely refreshing. And I think, a fresh wind, Chris, I believe is blowing in across Louisiana. We have so many candidates that we want to showcase on this show. We have so many candidates that we are looking at endorsing, others that we are looking to see if we will endorse. But I think, it's a great problem to be having that there are so many constitutional conservatives that we have more conservative candidates than we have days between now and the election. So for our listeners, maybe just a note that we are doing our level best to get you as many candidates as we can, but we will have more endorsements than we have days. So please keep an eye out. We will be letting you know who all we are endorsing. But Chris, before we kind of shift gears off of Randy, I'd love to maybe take a look at his opponent and why. I mean, we're excited about Randy and what he brings to the table. I think his backbone and his convictions. I love what he said about, is there not a cause? I mean, that's exactly right. There is a cause. The cause is our state, our future, our children, our economy. There are many causes. And his opponent just really hasn't stood for the people. His opponent is a sitting state rep, Bill Wheat. And I mean, you've already touched on what he did to support the reopening of our state during COVID, which is basically nothing, right?
Which is basically absolutely nothing, and I have that on very good verified authority that he was as quiet as a church mouse in the face of enormous suffering across the state. That is a fact. That is indisputable.
Well, I mean, that's a huge mark against him in my book, because as far as I believe you and I are concerned, your stance on how you're going to handle COVID and your track record on how you've handled it in the past is a huge litmus test for these two sitting behind the mics. So
a strong, Danielle, a strong indication on that, and a number of other bills in researching Representative Wheat that he just, I'm reading some of the bills that he voted against or helped to kill, and I'm like, why would you do this? Like, for instance, Beryl Amade's bill. We live in a day and age now where school boards and education bureaucrats very often don't really want parents to know really what is being taught to their children in these schools, with the injection of the critical race theory, the social emotional learning, the transgender concepts, all that. So Representative Amade brought a bill that basically made it mandatory that the school boards and the schools had to provide a copy of the actual lesson plan, weekly lesson plan that their students were being taught. It was a very important bill. It would have made it mandatory. Representative Bill Wheat opposed that legislation on the House floor, along with the notorious Representative Buddy Mincy, who's running for state senate out in Livingston against Valerie Hodges. They both opposed it. They both helped to kill a bill that would have given parents access to information regarding their students' curriculum that they have every right to know. And I think people in District 37 have a right to know how Representative Wheat voted on that bill.
Absolutely, Chris. And I just think the arrogance of that vote to say, no, I think that the teachers and the school boards know better than the parents. I just think that's abysmal. And I would just like to also point out that I think the vote that Bill Wheat took on this costs Louisiana taxpayers. It costs parents, because parents that can afford it are sending their kids to private schools in a lot of areas because of nonsense like this. Because they should have the right, they do have the right to know what their kids are being taught. And if they can't get that information from the school, then they're going to take their kids somewhere that they can trust that the teachers are teaching math, reading, history, English. I mean, anyway, I'll try not to go off too bad.
And Danielle, not having to worry about the injection of concepts into the curriculum that parents disagree with, that parents find very objectionable.
Exactly. So I have a lot of lost respect for Representative Bill Wheat over that vote. And he also, Chris, voted in a very strange way on a carbon capture sequestration bill that was really about property rights, right?
Absolutely. This was Senate Bill 353, Senator Sharon Hewitt. And the bill, and our listeners need to be sitting down when they hear this. The bill established as a matter of Louisiana public policy the right of private corporations to seize private property in order to transport and store carbon dioxide in these big underground vessels in order to store captured carbon dioxide. This is part of the big Biden green energy racket. Regardless of how you feel about carbon capture, and a lot of people are very skeptical about it, this bill that Representative Wheat voted for establishes as a matter of Louisiana policy the right of private corporations basically to seize private property for carbon capture in the state of Louisiana. That is a massively important issue, a property rights issue. And when you start saying that the money, the federal subsidies for carbon capture are so big, so attractive, so lucrative that you're going to compromise the fundamental property rights of Louisiana citizens in order to do this, that to me is absolutely beyond the pale. It's just too important.
It is. And, I just was talking about the last vote being arrogant. I think this is beyond arrogant. This is completely insane. This is unconscionable to say that we will take people's private property for something that's not even proven to work.
It's not proven to work. In fact, it is something that many scientists and environmentalists have said simply doesn't work. It doesn't achieve the objective of capturing significant amounts of CO2 from the atmosphere to make any difference whatsoever. And it's all, importantly, Danielle, it's all taxpayer subsidized. There is no natural market in the private economy for carbon capture sequestration. The only reason why this exists is because of billions and billions of dollars of our taxpayer money that is funding it. And that's important to remember. But again, the issue in this particular legislation was the fact that it's public policy in Louisiana, a presumption in favor of these big corporations to seize the private property of the little guy in order to do carbon capture on their land. Bill Wheat voted for that. And to me, that is a massively important issue for his voters to know about.
Yes, and it's not lost on me, Chris, that this bill was sponsored by Sharon Hewitt, who is running for governor. So let the people of Louisiana know, let the record state that Sharon Hewitt is the person who sponsored this bill, who's the person who drove this bill through to its final completion and for it to be enacted in law. So that's what you're getting if you vote for Sharon Hewitt.
Absolutely well worth noting, Danielle. And another bill, House Bill 165. This was the big green energy windmill bill in the Gulf of Mexico and Louisiana that allotted only to start up to 25,000 acres of offshore Louisiana waters in order to erect these unsightly windmills for the purported purpose of increasing energy. First of all, they don't work. They've been tried in Germany. They've been tried in Rhode Island. There is no scientific evidence that they produce appreciable energy. They are harmful to the environment, to wildlife. This is another big green energy racket subsidized by who, Danielle? By us, by our money, with our taxpayer money. 25,000 acres of Gulf waters infested with these windmills, and that's only a start. As I said, it'll probably be a whole lot more, and Bill Wheat voted for that legislation and failed to stand up for the Louisiana taxpayer.
He did, and it was brought forward by Representative Zarang and Representative Angeron, who both live near me, in the surrounding areas. Neither one of them are my representative. But I think that if they had put the energy that they spent on this windmill bill behind the oil and gas industry, which they are sitting on top of, right? Which the windmills will be sitting on top of, we would be a lot better off as a state economically and energy wise. So I just think this is a slap in the face to the Louisiana taxpayer.
Oh, no question about it, both the carbon capture and the windmills. And it's worth noting, Danielle, that these bills passed through the House and the Senate, became final law without significant debate about either the merits of carbon capture, about whether or not these windmills actually do help to produce energy, in significant quantities to make a difference. No debate, very little debate in there. It was all sacrificed on the altar of Joe Biden and the massive amount of money being poured into this state by way of federal subsidies in order to erect these monstrosities. And they all violate the basic, not only fiscal rights, taxpayer rights of citizens, but really in the case of carbon capture, even violate their basic property rights. But Bill Wheat made a decision to vote for both of those bills. And I think the voters obviously have a right to know about that.
Yeah, they do. And I think there's one last bill that you wanted to mention, Chris, that Bill Wheat killed.
Yes, this was House Bill 4. And by the way, this is not all that Representative Wheat has done, but this is I think a representative sample of what he's done. And that was House Bill 428. And do you remember, Danielle, during the time when every corner of our state and country, if it was a government official or a government source, was pressuring, coercing, cajoling people to wear masks, to get vaccines, to stay home, to quarantine, and do all these things. And Representative Amadei's bill, in response to that, said something very simple. This would prohibit any public educator in Louisiana from making any formal recommendations about vaccines or any medical procedures or health protocols, and that any such recommendations must come from a qualified medical provider. That's all that it said, and it was very simple, but very, very important. Well, Representative Bill Wheat, along with Representative Buddy Mincy out in Livingston Parish and a few others, voted against that very common sense legislation.
Well, he didn't even show up for the vote, I thought.
Did he? Wait, hold on a minute here. Let me see here. Representative, well, you're exactly right. Going back through, he was absent for the vote. And so the inference that I make, Danielle, you're exactly right. Thank you for the correction. The inference that I make very often, based upon observing these people for as long as I have, is that when they're absent for a vote, they know full well what their constituents expect them to do in their vote, and they try simply to avoid the issue by being absent for the vote and then coming up with an excuse later on as to why they were absent, which to me, I've told you this before, I have more respect for someone who at least shows up and makes a record vote and expresses a position than I do for someone who doesn't have the courage even to show up and vote.
Yeah, 100%. And Chris, this bill was something that should never have had to be brought forward, right? In a normal world, in a right side up world, Representative Amadei would have never needed to say, hey, teachers, you are prohibited from telling kids whether they should take the vaccine or not. You are prohibited from passing judgment on families, whether they take the vaccine or not. But the world that we live in is very contrary to that. And it was needed, and it continues to be needed because for some reason, because of, I think, the Marxism in the universities, Chris, teachers feel not only compelled, but they feel it's their right to, not all of them, obviously, but the ones that this bill is directed toward, right? Feel that it's
Absolutely.
feel that it's their right to indoctrinate children with their personal views rather than allow the parents to raise their kids with the views that they, views and values that they hold dear. So I commend Representative Amity pretty much as always. And I just think it's such a shame that going into this new quote unquote COVID crisis, that this is not already in place for those kids.
Absolutely. And remember, Danielle, when we had Hollis Day on, and this goes directly to the heart of this bill. Hollis said that he spoke with multiple medical doctors that he trusts, both with respect to whether he should get a vaccine, whether his kid should get a vaccine, and his medical doctors who know his history, know his health, know everything about him and his family said, you do not need to get this vaccine. It's not necessary for you to do so. And that is exactly why this legislation was necessary, because all Louisiana citizens should be able to make a determination based upon advice from their medical doctor and not based upon coercion and pressure and cajoling by education or health bureaucrats throughout the state. And that's exactly what Representative Amity's bill was responding to, and exactly the vote that Representative Wheat did not appear to vote in favor of.
Yeah. And anyway, I guess the upshot is it's a simple choice, right, between Randy Bush and Bill Wheat. I think Randy is obviously a man of principle. He's not afraid of people calling him names. He's not afraid of being bullied. He will stand up for the rights of the people of the state and specifically the people of District 37. So that is why we are strongly endorsing Randy Bush. And just to mention that if you want to support Randy, you can of course support him directly through his QR code that he mentioned. You can also support LeCag because LeCag is supporting Randy and many other conservative Louisiana First candidates across the state this election season. Just another note that Chris has written some articles about the private property seizure for carbon capture and the efficacy of windmills. So we'll link to those in the show notes if it's something you'd like to read more about what went down and the issues that are truly at stake for our state.
That's exactly right. And I researched those thoroughly, and I think our listeners will find those articles of interest. They're simple. They're not too long. So if you want some information about the carbon capture and the windmills and what a racket it is, then I would encourage you to read those articles. And to your other point, Danielle, LeCag has a PAC, and if you donate to the PAC, and that will go a long way in helping us to elect people like Randy Bush and return the state to the citizens of Louisiana. Danielle, we are in a battle. We are in a war. How many times, Danielle, have you heard people say about Representative so-and-so, yeah, he's a nice person. It's a nice lady. That's a nice man. And I respect that. And I think we should all be nice. But we live in an age where being nice is not going to save our republic, not going to save our state. We need patriots, we need warriors, we need men and women of courage. And that's why we exist, to help elect these conservative constitutionalists so that we can return the state to the citizens.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think part of the reason we are where we are is because people have chosen nice over powerful. Powerful meaning, when I say powerful, I guess I mean strength of conviction.
Yes, backbone, strength of conviction, and the ability and resolve to stand on your own rather than betray your principles to your citizens. Well, I am very, very thankful once again to have spent a good bit of time here with you. It always seems like it flies by. I want to thank our many supporters for the State of Freedom today. We're expanding across the state. And Danielle, what's so exciting about the State of Freedom is that we are revolutionizing the way political advocacy is done in Louisiana, because we are providing a broad platform more and more every day for people like Randy Bush and Hollis Day and others to share their vision across the state and compete with the big money special interest politicians that have been running this state for too long. So thank you for your donations and support for the State of Freedom and also for LeCag. And I know, Danielle, I don't think I know, with God's grace and resolve and daily conviction, we will continue to move forward to preserve the state of freedom in Louisiana.
Amen. Have a great day, Chris.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to The State of Freedom. To stay on top of all the calls to action we mentioned today, just check out the show notes for the episode. If you'd like to support the show financially, visit our website at freedomstate.us. If you'd prefer to give by mail, you can send a check to the State of Freedom, LLC, at P.O. Box 861, Berg, Louisiana 70343. If you own a business in Louisiana and are interested in supporting our show by advertising, please email us at info@freedomstate.us. To get involved with Louisiana Citizen Advocacy Group, visit lacag.org, LACAG.org, or email Chris at chris@lacag.org. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe and share it. Give us a 5-star rating in the reviews. Thanks again, everybody. We'll see you next time.